Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome all of you all back to our Ram Katha. And we are continuing from where we left off in the morning today. Anybody remembers where we left? Fine. So there is a confluence of Ganga and the Sarayu River. They come across a hermitage, which is a desolate hermitage. So Ram and Lakshman, along with Vishwamitra Muni, they're traveling to this particular place. And when they see this hermitage, immediately Ram asks Vishwamitra Muni, whose hermitage is this? And Vishwamitra Muni begins to tell a story. And this story will reveal to us what this hermitage and how powerful this hermitage is and how historical this hermitage is. This section of the story, which we are talking about, is in the direction of Mithila. So Siddhashram, if I'm not mistaken, it is somewhere in the border of Mithila of Nepal and India, somewhere in that subsection. Of course, the exact whereabouts we will not be able to figure it out. But so roughly where Ganga and Sarayu River meet, that's where this ashram is. So Vishwamitra Muni tells the story of this ashram. He tells that long back, Lord Shiva used to meditate in this ashram. This particular hermitage belonged to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva used to perform tapasya there. Obviously, when Lord Shiva performs tapasya, he completely loses himself for months and months, sometimes years together. Completely loses track of reality. One particular time where Lord Shiva was lost in such trance, completely lost in meditation. At that point in time, the gods, headed by Indra, they were wanting Shiva to help them by giving them a very powerful commander-in-chief for their army, who eventually is Kartikeya. But at that point in time, Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, so they went and requested, Parvati Devi to go and do something about it. Parvati Devi said, I can't do anything. When he's in meditation, I have no access to him. So Indra took it on himself to do something to, wake Shiva up. So Indra, that guy is giving commentary. And he said the right thing actually. So Indra, he asked Kamadev to go and disturb Lord Shiva. Kamadev said, I can't take a chance. You have no idea what it means to disturb Lord Shiva. So Indra said, see, you have to do this. This is for the world, for the sake of the world. Kamadev said, see, it's all fine for the sake of the world. What about me? Yeah. Indra said, don't worry, I am there behind you. And when people say like this, you have to really be careful. Because they, sometimes just want to encourage you and push you ahead. But then after that, they really don't. Nobody can help you really. So it's like, all those people who are grahasthas, who are married, they encourage the person who is not married, jump in, no problem, we are there behind you, And then after he jumps in, then he realizes that he's on his own. Nobody can help you. So Indra is like, Kamadev, go ahead, I'm there with you. And Kamadev goes ahead and he shoots arrows at Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva, he has two eyes. And when Lord Shiva sees with these two eyes, things are fine. But there are some times when Lord Shiva opens his third eye. And this is very interesting. All of us, we also have two eyes. And we see the world with two eyes. But when we see the world with two eyes, you get deceived many times. And whenever Lord Shiva comes across a situation in his life, when two eyes are not enough, that's when he opens his third eye. The reality becomes more clearer. So when we are faced with karma, so karma is, it refers to anything, any desires that you have. So anytime you have any desires in your life and you look at it with two eyes, you will never be able to see clearly. And that's why you open the third eye, which is known as Jnana Chakshu, which is the eye of knowledge. And when the third eye opens, then you can see more clearly. That's why people say that love is blind. Two eyes are just not enough to see clearly when somebody is in love. You need a third eye, which is Jnana Chakshu. So Lord Shiva, the moment he opens his third eye, he burns down Kamadev. And the Ramayana describes that Shiva burns down Kamadev to nothingness. What is the meaning of nothingness? Nothingness means even the ashes don't remain. Gone. From a solid state to not even gaseous state. He's just gone, disappeared. I mean, usually when you put something in fire, ashes remain, right? Imagine the heat of Shiva's third eye, even the ashes didn't remain. Even ashes got burnt. Kamadev was gone. He disappeared from this world. And from that time, Kamadev got a new name. He got the name Ananga. Anga means body, and Ananga means the one who doesn't have a body. From that time, Kama doesn't have a physical existence. It only exists in your mind. So as long as you imagine pleasure, there is lots. But when you actually, experience it, it's not so much. Just like when you're standing in the line of the prasadam, you look at all the items, there is a certain perception of what you will taste, And then when you take it on the plate, based on that little perception, that perception that your mind has made up, not always it matches, isn't it? Especially on an Ekadasi day. You look at those items and you start thinking, oh, it tastes like this, it tastes like that, And then when it comes on your plate and you actually eat it, it's not exactly matching in taste, isn't it? So Kama is known as Ananga. From that point onwards, so till that point in time, Kama had a physical existence. That means people could experience pleasure tangibly. But from the time Shiva burnt Kamadev and he disappeared, Kama doesn't have a physical existence, he only has a mental existence. And that's why all our experiences of pleasure, all our experiences of, something that is exciting, it is great as long as it is in the mind. The moment it hits the reality, it becomes something else. So Shiva, he burns Kamadev. And from that point onwards, so after he burns Kamadev, he leaves that place. The place becomes a desolate place. Nobody stays in that place anymore. And now Rama has come to that place. So Rama represents Dharma. So Kama, as long as it is in alignment with Dharma, it will inspire you. But when Kama, it's not aligned with Dharma, it becomes a distraction. So Ram coming to that particular place, it represents the alignment of Dharma with Kama. So all of us in our own lives, so the scriptures, the Vedic scriptures are not against Kama. In fact, our Vedic culture is the only culture, only religion in the world that has a scripture on Kama. There is no other religion in the entire world that has a scripture on Kama. But the idea that the Vedic scripture gives us is that it is not just karma, but it is karma that is in alignment with dharma. That combination is a very deadly combination. It is a very, very important combination. So here, again, we're coming to a very interesting section of the Ramayana where Lord Shiva, rather Vishwamitra Muni, is explaining to Ram the story of Shiva and Kama. And Vishwamitra Muni is talking to Ram about how to align one's desires and how to deal with one's desires. In the Gita, Krishna speaks this very important verse. He says, Prajahati yada kaman, sarvan partha manogatan, atmani evad manatushta, sita prakrita dochate. So he speaks in this verse about Prajahati yada kaman, sarvan partha manogatan. Krishna uses this very interesting word called manogatan. So he's trying to say that kama here, it refers to desires, and he's trying to say where do the desires originate. So he says manogataha. Manogataha means desires originate in the mind. And the scriptures are not saying don't have desires. The scriptures are only saying don't have desires that take you away from your destination, from your journey, or rather from your path. There was one lady who once was walking, and as she was walking to her office, to her work, she saw a shop that sold saris. And on the display was a mannequin, a doll that was draped in a very beautiful sari. When she saw that sari, she completely lost her mind. She desperately wanted that sari. But she saw the price tag. It was too much. She couldn't afford it. So she went to the office. The next day she came back. Again she saw that sari. This time she went inside the shop and she asked the sales fellow, how much is this sari? The salesperson said, he quoted the cost. She said, pack it. So the sales fellow went inside, got a new sari. Same design, same color, everything. She said, no. I want that sari that doll is wearing, mannequin is wearing. The salesperson said, exact same it is. Same color, same pattern, same design, everything same. She said, no. I want that one only. The customer is a king. So that guy, he removed the sari off, folded it and packed it and gave it to her. She said, sorry, I can't afford it. This man said, what nonsense? Why did you make me remove that sari out? She said, see, yesterday I lost the whole day thinking of this sari. I can't afford to lose another day today. So I wanted the sari off that mannequin. All of us are very much like this lady. We have our own, manogatan, sarvan partha manogatan, as Krishna is saying. So the mind has a very vicious way of tricking us. The mind, it's in a loop actually, and the loop that the mind is in is called sankalpa and vikalpa. Sankalpa, vikalpa, sankalpa, vikalpa. Sankalpa, vikalpa means accepting, rejecting, accepting, rejecting. So the way our mind tricks us and fools us is that we want something. When we get it, we don't want that thing. We want something else. When we get that, we don't want that. We want something else. So the mind, just now it said, I want it. And then when you give it, it says, I don't want it. So Lord Shiva, why he killed Kama? He killed Kama because it is an indicative, it's a symbolic representation of how one should deal with the desires that the mind throws at us randomly. We have to look at it from the point of view of what Shastra, or rather what is good for us from a higher perspective. And Lord Shiva, he's encouraging us to become what is called as Shastra Chakshu. Shastra Chakshu means see the world through the eyes of the scriptures. Don't just see the world with your two eyes. If you see the world with your two eyes, you will have a limited perception of the world. But when you see the world with your third eye, which is called Shastra Chakshu, which we should develop over time. Shastra Chakshu doesn't come with birth. Your third eye doesn't come with birth. It has to be developed over a period of time. I wrote this book called Open-Eyed Meditations. That's the English translation of the word Shastra Chakshu. So many people keep asking me, what the hell is open-eyed meditation? They never heard of open-eyed meditation. I tell them this. Sanskrit version is called Shastra Chakshu. If you put that on the cover page, nobody will buy it. So I put a very fashionable word on the cover page, open-eyed meditation. That means see the world through the eyes of the scriptures. And when you see the world through the eyes of the scripture, which is the third eye of Lord Shiva, Shastra Chakshu, you see and you perceive something different. So Lord Rāma was very, very amazed with the explanation that Vishwamitra Muni gives about that particular ashram. And then Lord Rāma, he realizes something very important in this particular place. Kama is selfish and prema is selfless. Kama is selfish and prema is selfless. Technically, both mean the same thing. Kama is love, prema is love. But there's a difference between the two types of love. Kama inspires you to think of taking, exploiting, enjoying. Prema inspires you to serve, to give, to be selfless. The more we are in the mood of prema, that much more selfless we are. And the more we are in the mood of kama, that much more selfish we are. Life is not about either kama or prema, it's about balance between the two. So Shiva destroyed kama because it was one-sided. Extremely selfish way of looking at life. What is in it for me? And that kind of karma, that kind of mindset is not a healthy mindset to cultivate. And that mindset has to be immediately destroyed. And the idea of balance between the two is what is needed. So the scriptures don't recommend not enjoying. But the scriptures don't recommend enjoying without thinking. So the scriptures recommend the mid path. Enjoy in a way that is healthy for your growth. Enjoy in a way that is progressive in nature. Enjoy in a way that is selfless. Ram, Vishwamitra Muni, and Lakshman, they continued further. So until this point in time, Vishwamitra Muni has learned, or rather, he is evolving in three ways. So while I'm telling you the story of Ram, Lakshman, Vishwamitra Muni happening, I'm also parallelly telling you all the story of Vishwamitra's spiritual growth. So the first thing Vishwamitra Muni learned was to start sharing what he has with others. In spiritual life, it is important to share what you have with others. Offer what you have to God. The second thing Vishwamitra Muni learned as he traveled. So the second thing that Lord Vishwamitra Muni learns in this story is the idea of dependence. So when you progress in our spiritual journey, first thing is that we start offering everything we have to God. The second thing that we do is start looking at the greatness of other people. Start depending on other people's blessings, on blessings of great evolved personalities. Appreciate their greatness. Appreciate their devotion. And when you start doing that, you start developing your own. The third thing that Vishwamitra is learning through this journey is the idea of how to live a balanced life. Either extreme is bad. Extreme enjoyment, extreme austerity. Both are bad. So far, Vishwamitra Muni was an extreme level of austerity, saying no to everything. Now, Vishwamitra Muni, in the association of Lord Rama, is realizing life is in between, balance. So the devotees, if you see, they live a life of balance. It's not that devotees don't enjoy. Prabhupada asked, what do you do for recreation? Prabhupada said, we only do recreation. I mean, have you ever experienced dancing on the streets? I'm sure when you go with your families, you feel like dancing. But have you ever done it? Look at what we are doing over here. We're all dancing on the street, singing on the street. I mean, these are things that you would never do normally, isn't it? But when you are in the association of devotees, you get to experience so much, a variety of things. Such opulent prasad. Today's lunch. How many of you all loved it? See, it is Ekadasi. What a feast, isn't it? Amazing. So devotees it's not that devotees don't enjoy. They enjoy. But they enjoy in a way that is healthy. They enjoy in a way that is progressive. So Vishwamitra Muni is learning this, that I need to become a little more balanced person. So as you evolve spiritually, you learn to come to a point of balance. Then Vishwamitra Muni, Rama and Lakshman, they began to travel across the Ganga. In fact, they took a boat and they were on a boat traveling across the Ganga river. So they obviously passed the Saray river from Ayodhya and they have now come towards Ganga. Ganga is in Prayag, that whole tract of land. And as they are crossing across the Ganga river, they come across a very, very dreadful forest. And it is such a forest that so much intense heat Rama and Lakshman start experiencing. The heat is unbearable. So there's a sudden change of temperature. There's a sudden change of atmosphere. And Rama and Lakshman start sweating, experiencing such intense sun, such intense heat. And immediately, the two brothers chant the Bala Nati Bala mantras. And the moment they chant the Bala Nati Bala mantras, they immediately feel very much in control. They don't feel the heat anymore. They don't feel the exhaustion anymore. And then Ram immediately asked Vishwamitra Muni, what is this forest? Why is this forest like this? Why is it so dreadful? Vishwamitra Muni begins to tell the story of that forest. This is something very interesting that we can learn from the Ramayana, especially from the way Rama is traveling, Rama's Yatra here with Vishwamitra Muni. At every point, Ram wants to know what is the history behind it. At every point, he's asking Vishwamitra Muni, tell me the story behind this. There's a forest over there. He's saying, why is the story? Why is the forest like this? Tell me the story behind this. And look at Vishwamitra Muni also. He knows the story behind everything. Ram is pointing out to one ashram. He's saying, what is the story behind that? And Vishwamitra Muni is telling. He's pointing out to a forest, telling what is the story behind that. Vishwamitra Muni is telling. Amazing, isn't it? This is the deadliest combination. A qualified disciple who is ready to inquire, who is very inquisitive, and a bona fide guru who is very knowledgeable. That combination is very deadly. And when you come across a combination like this, don't leave that person. If you come across a bona fide teacher who is knowledgeable, catch that person, don't leave that person. So Ram over here, he is so inquisitive. Every point he's asking. So Ram, as I said, he has come to teach us how to be ideal human beings. So in the spirit of being ideal human beings, Lord Rama is teaching us how to be an ideal disciple also. By doing what is known as submissive inquiry. So Ram and Lakshman, they ask Vishwamitra Muni the story behind this, and then Vishwamitra Muni begins to speak the story of that forest. Amazing story. The story is connected to the Bhagavatam. So Vishwamitra Muni says that long back, when Indra killed Vritrasur demon, there was this massive demon named Vritrasur that Indra killed. So when Indra killed Vritrasur demon, he got a very bad curse. The reason was because Vritrasura was not an ordinary demon. He was an exalted devotee of the Lord. Now, he was in the body of a demon, but he was a devotee. So when Indra killed Vritrasura, he got the curse of Brahmahatya. So technically, he had committed what is known as Brahmahatya. And because he had killed such an exalted devotee, Indra became afflicted with great hunger and he became very dirty. His body became very contaminated, very dirty. And Indra, he was going mad with hunger and he was feeling very, very dirty. And then he came to this particular forest in which Raman, Lakshman, and Vishwamitra Muni are traveling. And when Indra came to this particular forest, he got relief from his hunger and he became cleansed. And because in this forest, Indra got relief from hunger because of the fruits that he ate in this forest. And because he bathed in the waters in this forest and he got relief from the dirt that was contaminating his body, these two forests got a new name. The first forest, which helped Indra get cleansed, the first section of the forest that helped Indra get cleansed, was known as Malada. Malada means the forest that cleanses you. And the second section of the forest where Indra got free from hunger was known as Kharusha. Kharusha means the place which gives you freedom from hunger. And Indra blessed these two forests that they become prosperous. And these two forests became extremely prosperous. Unlimited fruits, unlimited flowers. Every tree was so opulent and healthy. And all the animals in this particular place were very, very happy in the forest. At that point in time, there was a Yaksha whose name was Suketu. This Yaksha, he had a daughter whose name was Tātakā. And this Yaksha married his daughter to a Rakshasa, to a demon named Sunda. So when Sunda and Tātakā got married, they gave birth to two sons, Marich and Subahu. And Sunda, being a demon, one of his favorite hobbies was to go and disturb sages. Whenever he got bored, he would go and find a sage and disturb him. There are some people who even now have that hobby. Just go and irritate somebody. People do anything in boredom. They just go and start talking to someone. Pass some comments. Random things people say, and most of the times they say it just because they're bored in life. They're just so bored in life, they want to go and irritate somebody. This is like a interesting way of entertaining oneself, to see how they react. If I tell this, how that fellow will react, So this guy, he unfortunately one day went and irritated Agastya Rishi. Absolutely the wrong person. See, till you're irritating regular people, it's fine. But the day you irritate somebody who is really exalted, that's when you had it. All of us, we have to be really careful whom we irritate in life, Out of boredom, if you go and irritate the wrong person, then you really get cursed. So Agastya Rishi, he was so irritated with this fellow, Sunda, unnecessarily coming and disturbing him. For, he didn't do anything to Sunda. Coming and disturbing him. Sunda, he was burned to ashes by Agastya Rishi. Now, these stories, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and all our scriptures, the Bhagavatam teach us, apparently seem to be really, really gross stories. How can somebody do such a bad thing that somebody curses you to death? But these stories are all real stories that happen in all our lives also. In one sense, there is a Sunda in us also, right? Why do we every single day in the morning we chant the 10 offenses? And of the 10 offenses, what is the mad elephant offense? The mad elephant offense is Vaishnav Aparad. What is the meaning of Vaishnav Aparad? Vaishnav Aparad, it can be anything. Anything that displeases a Vaishnav is Vaishnav Aparad. Now, all of us, fortunately or unfortunately, are Vaishnavas. The good part of the yatra is that we get a lot of Vaishnava association. But the bad part of the yatra is that you also get a chance to offend 200 devotees at a time or individually. Yeah. So in yatras, two things always happen. One thing is the opportunity to serve devotees. And the second thing is the opportunity to offend devotees. And interestingly, knowingly, unknowingly, we do both. We end up serving devotees also. But because of the mouth that we have, sometimes we say things that even disturbs devotees. We may not even know that we're disturbing somebody. But if it does disturb somebody, what the words that come out from our mouth, be rest assured, it is going to affect your next day morning's chanting. It is going to affect the next day morning sadhana, for sure. And therefore, when we are in the association of devotees, please remember this story of Sundar going and irritating Agastya Rishi. Of course, the person sitting next to you may not look like Agastya Rishi, yeah. But potentially in every person there is a Agastya Rishi hidden. You don't know who is going to become whom 10 years down the line. 10 years down the line, which devotee will evolve to another level, you don't know. Better to assume everybody is exalted devotee only. And be careful what we speak and how we speak. And we don't displease and offend them. Sundar irritated Agastya Rishi. Agastya Rishi burnt him to ashes. After Agastya Rishi burnt him to ashes, Tātakā, the wife of Sundar, became really upset with Agastya Rishi. And she, along with her two sons, Marich and Subhahu, ran to attack Agastya Rishi. And Agastya Rishi, when he saw these three people running towards him to attack him, he immediately understood what their intentions are. And he cursed all three of them to become massive demons that will be, always hungry. And instantly, these three became huge demons. Tātakā, in her great frustration, she couldn't do anything to Agastya Rishi. Because she couldn't do anything to him, she destroyed the entire forest. She literally made that forest desolate. So here we find two stories. One is a story of blessings, and the second is a story of curses. In the first story, we find Indra blessing the forest. And in the second story, we find Tātakā destroying the forest, cursing the forest. And both these stories are spoken almost simultaneously in the Ramayana. This is life. Life is, a mixture of good and bad, a mixture of curses and blessings. And therefore, we have to live life in such a way that we collect more and more blessings and try not to collect curses. The family business of the Pandavas was to collect blessings. The family business of the Kauravas was to collect curses. We all have to start thinking for ourselves. Do we want to collect curses or do we want to collect blessings? The amazing thing is that to get blessings, it doesn't take too much. And to get curses also, it doesn't take too much. It's just a matter of how we deal with people. If we help them a little bit, if you just do something a little for them, they bless you. And if you do something harmful to them, you either say something or do something harmful to them, then they curse you. The good part is that in Kali Yuga, curses don't work. That's the good part. But don't think they don't work subtly. They definitely work subtly. And especially spiritually, it works. It transforms into offenses. So, what we call as curses in the past, in Vaishnava language, it is called offenses. So, somebody may not curse us, but if they get displeased and offended, that directly affects the quality of your spiritual journey. So, here, Ram, he was very, very sad to hear this story. How, because of one person and that one person's anger, an entire forest is destroyed. Tātakā, her inability to handle her anger, destroyed the entire forest. And after Tātakā destroyed the entire forest, she was living in that same forest, protecting the forest, making sure that nobody comes into this forest to revive it. At that point, Ram, Vishwamitra Muni, and Lakshman, they get off the boat and they walk into the forest. Vishwamitra Muni tells Lord Ram that he must get rid of Tātakā and free this forest from the influence of this demon. So Ram took his bow and twanged it. He didn't put an arrow. He just released, he reverberated the string. When the bow of Lord Ram twanged, the sound was so loud that the entire forest shook. So loud the sound was. And Tātakā was on the other end of the forest. And she immediately got up because she realized there's somebody entered into the forest. And she ran towards the source of that sound. And here is a description of Tātakā at this point in time in the Ramayana. It is explained when Tātakā ran, it was so huge that every step that she placed her foot, a puddle of water would form, like a huge lake of water would form. Running at full speed, so many puddles were being created. And Tātakā was wearing a garland around her neck. And the garland was a very interesting garland. It was a garland of 108 elephants. The trunk of one elephant tied to the tail of the next elephant. Like this. There was a full garland she was wearing around her neck. Imagine how huge Tātakā was. And she ran towards where Ram and Lakshman were. Hundreds of trees were being crushed under her feet. And finally she reached where Ram and Lakshman was. With great anger, she's looking at them. So at that point in time, Vishwamitra Muni tells Ram, kill her. And Ram begins to think. Technically, this is the first person Ram is going to kill in his life. In 12 years of his life, he has never killed anybody. He's only learned archery. He's learned all. He's got all the weapons necessary, but he has never entered into a fight till now. First person Ram is officially going to kill in this incarnation is Tātakā. And Ram thinks, should I open my account with a woman? The first person I kill in my life, should it be a woman? And he's like thinking a lot. Vishwamitra Muni, when he looks at Ram thinking, he understands. This person is thinking a lot. And Vishwamitra Muni starts giving some scriptural references. How at certain occasions, at certain points, women can be killed. Of course, in Krishna Avatar, the first demon he killed is a woman also. Putana. But Krishna doesn't think so much. He kills. He closes his eyes and kills directly. But Ram, he thinks a lot. This is the difference between Krishna Avatar and Rama Avatar. The difference between Krishna Avatar and Rama Avatar is that in Krishna Avatar, he is Purna Purushottam Bhagavan. He is full-fledged God. He doesn't have to think of consequences and he doesn't have to think of what is right and wrong. Whatever he thinks is right. He doesn't have to go by these rules and regulations and what human society will think. He'll do whatever he wants. But Ram Avatar, the purpose of it is to set an example for human society. And therefore, whatever Ram does, there is a thought behind it. Whatever Ram does, there is a logic behind it. And there is a reasoning behind it. And there is something that is Siddhanta, which is good for human society as an example. And only then Ram does it. So if you find any action of Ram which you are not able to understand, remember that he has thought 100 times before doing that action. He has thought more than you can ever think. And if you think you are smart enough to tell Ram what to do, you're only a fool. Isn't it? So if you don't understand something, it simply means you don't understand it. It doesn't mean Ram has not understood it. Or rather, Ram has not thought about it. He's thought about it hundreds of times before doing anything. So he's thinking over here. Vishwamitra Muni understands Lord Rama is thinking too much. And he says, he gives two examples. He says, one time, Indra had to kill a woman named Sumati. So originally her name was Sumati, but because she was doing such wrong things, her name became Kumati. Sumati means the one who has good intelligence, and Kumati means the one who has crooked intelligence, basically. So she was doing something that was supporting the demons, and Indra had to intervene and kill her. And then Vishwamitra Muni gives another example. He says Lord Vishnu had to kill the wife of Bhrigu named Khyati, because the wife of Bhrigu, she was secretly giving all the prasad of the yajna to the demons to empower them. And Lord Vishnu had to intervene and kill Khyati. And then Vishwamitra Muni tells Lord Ram that Tātakā has no womanly virtues. The idea of male and female, the idea of masculine energy and feminine energy, according to the scriptures, is based on qualities, based on certain traits and certain qualities one exhibits. All of us have both feminine energy and masculine energy in us. Every female has masculine energy also, and every male has feminine energy also. And the balance of these two energies is what spiritually evolved people are about. Spiritually evolved people, it's not about gender, it's about balance of these two energies. Feminine energy is compassionate by nature, where you see kindness, where you see sensitivity, where you see compassion, where you see love, where you see loyalty. These are all feminine energies. And these energies can be present in a male also. And then there are masculine energies. There is courage, there is strength, there is logic and reasoning, there is the ability to discriminate and make decisions, there is ability to go deeper in analysis of scriptures. All these are masculine energies. And a female can have these masculine energies also. So spiritual life helps you achieve balance of all energies that are needed. So Vishwamitra Muni is telling Ram, where do you see feminine qualities in her? Tātakā has no feminine qualities. And Vishwamitra Muni is telling, because she doesn't have any feminine qualities, you can kill her. She is not a woman. And Vishwamitra Muni, when he tells like that, Lord Ram begins to think a little bit more. Ram realizes that he has three authorities in his life. The first authority is his father, Dasharath Maharaj. Dasharath Maharaj told him, follow Vishwamitra Muni. The second authority that he has is Vishwamitra Muni himself, who is telling him, kill Tātakā. And the third authority that Ram has is the Shastra, the scriptures. And because the words of Dasharath and Vishwamitra Muni are in alignment with the scriptures, then Ram says, I can kill her. Look at Ram's analysis. Look at Ram's, way of making decisions in life. The problem with all of us is that we make very important decisions abruptly. Here is a demon coming and screaming in front of Ram. He's still thinking, should I kill her or no? Can there be a bigger emergency than that? One demon is looking at you, screaming at you. There cannot be a bigger emergency than that, isn't it? But even in that emergency situation, Ram stood and thought for a few minutes and then made a decision. This simply tells us sometimes it is okay to delay making decisions. The world will always put you on emergency. The world will always put a fire under you. Right now, do it, do it, do it. You don't have to succumb to such pressures. Imagine Ram's guru Vishwamitra Muni is telling him, Paro. And Ram is still thinking. And the most amazing thing over here is that, in spite of his guru telling him, he still wants confirmation with his own intelligence. And that's what human beings are all about. Even if your guru tells you something, you should still think whether it is the right thing for me to do or not. The scriptures do not recommend blind following. The scriptures do not recommend anybody to just blindly do what is told. You use your own intelligence also. Use your own discrimination also. And when Ram decided that now I am clear, I want to kill her, he gets up and first thing when the fight begins, he cuts off the arms of Tataka, the two arms of Tataka. And as Tataka loses her arms, suddenly she becomes really violent and really angry because she realizes that this is not an ordinary fight. And Tataka disappears. And from hiding, she's mystically disappeared. And from hiding, she throws stones, huge rocks at Ram to try to injure him. Vishwamitra Muni, when he sees what Ram is doing, he realizes that even now Ram is showing compassion on her. He's not directly killing her. He's giving her chances. He's thinking, this lady, she's a demon. But what if I give her another chance? He's cutting off the arms, trying to see how she'll react now to it. Vishwamitra Muni is telling Ram, my dear Ram, it is night time, almost sunset. And after the sun sets, the demons become more powerful. Just finish her off. And at that point in time, Tātakā, she is hiding and throwing things. But at one point, she realizes that Ram is uncertain. She starts laughing loudly. And as soon as she laughs loudly, she realizes she made a big mistake. Because now Ram understood where she is. And then Ram shot an arrow that entered into the heart of Tātakā and came out from the other side. It is a very interesting commentary of an acharya that says that Ram's arrow entered Tātakā's heart and came out the other side, just like good advice enters a fool's ears and comes out the other side. Very interesting commentary, isn't it? So this huge demoness Tātakā collapsed, and at that point in time, Lord Ram turns towards his guru Vishwamitra Muni and he begs forgiveness from Vishwamitra Muni. He tells Vishwamitra Muni, my dear guru, my dear master, please forgive me that I hesitated for one moment before following your instructions. And Vishwamitra Muni says, I am very happy that you hesitated. He said, this actually shows your discrimination power. Look at this amazing discussion between a guru and a disciple. Ram, he's begging forgiveness from his teacher because he didn't follow instruction directly. He thought a little bit, few moments he was hesitating, then he followed. And Ram begged forgiveness for that. And Vishwamitra Muni, he's such an exalted teacher, exalted guru. He understood that this person is not an ordinary person. When you're dealing with leaders, you cannot deal with them the way you deal with ordinary people. Leaders will think. Leaders will use their discrimination. They will just not follow blindly. And Vishwamitra Muni recognized this is not an ordinary person. So I can't get angry on him. He is a leader. He will think. And he will not succumb to pressure like that. And Vishwamitra Muni was able to really, understand that. Ram was able to find fault in himself. And Vishwamitra Muni was able to see good in Ram. Isn't that amazing? Ram immediately found a fault in himself. I hesitated. That's a mistake. I should follow Guru's instructions. And Vishwamitra Muni, exactly opposite. Instead of finding fault in Ram, he's finding good in him. Good, you hesitated. Which means you are a thinking person. You are independently thoughtful. Every guru, every teacher, every Siksha and Diksha guru must encourage their disciples to become independently thoughtful. If you don't encourage people to become independently thoughtful, you are creating robots. You're creating people who will not think. But ideally, spiritually, we should all be thinking individuals. That means before you do anything, I told chant. You should first ask why you chant. And only when you're convinced, do it. But when you're convinced, do it with full conviction, nothing half-baked. So Vishwamitra Muni was very, very happy with Lord Ram, and he learned something very, very important here, which is very important for our spiritual progress. So this is how many things Vishwamitra Muni has learned so far? The first thing is sharing. The second thing is dependence and appreciating the greatness of others. The third thing is seeing balance. The idea of finding balance between selfishness and selflessness, between giving and taking. Now, the fourth thing the Vishwamitra Muni is learning now at this point in time is spiritualists should become aware, should become very aware individuals. Awareness is extremely important for one to grow in one's spiritual journey. Knowledge makes an insensitive person very sensitive. Now, what is the meaning of awareness? Let me explain to you what awareness is. Tātakā was ignorant and insensitive. She took pleasure in torturing others. So on one end is Tātakā, who was totally ignorant and she loved troubling other people. On the other end is Lord Rāma. Lord Rāma was knowledgeable and very sensitive. And even to the person who was a criminal, he was thinking. He was trying to be sensitive even to Tātakā. So now, all of us have to learn this balance. What is the balance that we have to learn? The idea that we have to learn over here is try to become more sensitive, aware, and compassionate individuals. Most of us, when we are angry, we lose any kind of sensitivity and awareness, right? When we're angry on somebody, do we care for their feelings? Do we think about them? We don't really bother about them, isn't it? Because we are bothered about ourselves. But look at Ram here. Here is a lady who was a really vicious person. But even with that person, Ram is thinking, how can I help her? How can I benefit her? How can I be sensitive to her? How can I help her? This is what spiritual life is all about. So, all of us in our journeys of life, we will all come across situations in life where we are angry, where we come across people who are bad, we come across people who are very cruel, violent, insensitive people. When we interact with such insensitive and cruel and violent people, you know what usually happens? We also become like them. The fault that we find in them, it comes in us also. But Ram is so amazing that he saw a fault in Tataka, but he made sure that fault doesn't come in him. He saw that Tataka is insensitive, he saw that Tataka is cruel and violent, and Ram thought, should I also be the same? Then what is the difference between me and her? And therefore, Ram really analyzed a lot before doing what he did. And that's what the idea of awareness is. Spiritualists should become more and more aware individuals. Materially, most of us are very insensitive and unaware people. As we progress in our spiritual lives, we have to become more and more aware people. The more aware we are, the more kinder we can be and the more evolved we can be in our spiritual journeys. If you study great personalities, any great devotees, and I'm sure all of you would have come across so many spiritual devotees, right? What differentiates them from other individuals is the sensitivity and awareness. They are so sensitive about other people's feelings. They're so sensitive about other people's heart. And that's what makes them so beautiful. And all of us, we are very far away from it. The problem with us is that even when we hurt somebody, we don't realize only we have hurt the fellow. That's our situation at this point in time. But as we go in our spiritual journeys, we'll become more and more aware. And we'll become more and more subtler in our awareness. Right now, we are very gross in our awareness. But as we grow in our spiritual journeys, we become more and more subtler about our awareness. Now, Ram, Lakshmana, Vishwamitra Muni, they start moving ahead after killing of Tātakā. They reach the river bank of the Kaushiki river. And immediately when they reach the river banks of the Kaushiki river, at that point in time, they are on that river. And immediately Lord Ram asks Vishwamitra Muni about that river. And Vishwamitra Muni tells a fantastic story about Kaushiki river. He says, long back, there was a son of Lord Brahma whose name was Kusha. And Kusha had a son whose name was Kushanabha. And Kushanabha had 100 daughters. And Vayu, the wind god, fell in love with all of them, all the 100 daughters. Another level of romance, And Vayu fell in love with all 100 of them and he wanted to marry all 100 of them. And the 100 girls, daughters of Kushanabha, told Vayu that we will marry you if our father says okay. And Vayu got really upset that they didn't say okay immediately. And he broke all their backs. Vayu is inside all of us, right? Vayu is the air floating around inside us, right? If one of those airs moves in another direction, your back can break. Any bone in your body can break. Vayu is inside you also, outside you also, right? So if you mess around with Vayu, you are in big trouble. So Vayu didn't do anything, he just moved a little bit. And all their backs broke. And with, technically this is called Vata. So, a lot of people have these Vata imbalance. Suddenly you get a scratch, suddenly you get a sprain, suddenly you get a, that's all Vata basically. So you probably have offended Vayu in some way, Figure out what you have done to offend him. Anyway, so When Vayu broke their backs, these girls were really in a very bad shape. They just couldn't walk only. They literally had to crawl back home. And their father was feeling so bad to see his 100 daughters, such beautiful daughters, in such a bad shape. Who will marry them now? At that point in time, there was a very powerful personality named Brahmadatta who comes and tells Kushanaba, I'll marry all 100 of them. And Brahmadatta accepted them, which with the way they are, in the situation in which they were. And he touched all of them. And with one touch, they became completely all right. They got rid of their back issues. They became completely fine, basically. When you have a personal agenda and your personal agenda is not met, you can break people's backs and you can break people's hearts. And when you have a selfless heart and you only have a desire to serve, you can restore people's beauty. So here is a story where we saw two people just in a frame of 1 minute. We saw a person whose one desire was not fulfilled, he broke their backs. And here was a person who was ready to accept them even with their defect. So all of us in our lives, we can either choose to be like Vayu or we can choose to be like Brahmadatta. We can choose to be highly selfish and so insensitive that we break people's backs and their hearts. Or we can be like Brahmadatta, so compassionate, so loving, that even people with broken backs and broken hearts, you can restore them. Isn't it? And that's the role that all of us can choose to play. We can either choose to play the role of Brahmadatta or we can choose to play the role of Vayu. We can choose to play the role of breaking people's hearts and breaking people's backs by our insensitivity and our selfishness, or we can choose to restore people's hearts and restore people's faith by being sensitive like Brahmadatta and being kind, being selfless like Brahmadatta. So then Vishwamitra Muni continues saying that Kushanaba had 100 daughters that got married to Brahmadatta, but Kushanaba had one son whose name was Gadhi. And Gadhi had two children, Kaushika and Kaushiki. Kaushika eventually became Vishwamitra. So it is his own story, basically. Vishwamitra, so he himself was the son of Gadhi, and his sister Kaushiki was the daughter of Gadhi. And Kaushiki got married to a sage named Richika Muni. So Richika Muni, he married Kaushiki, and they spent some beautiful time together. And after some time of their marriage, Richika Muni, he decided to go to Brahmaloka. He said, I've spent enough time on earth, I want to perfect my life and go to Brahmaloka. So he left to Brahmaloka. And Kaushiki, she spent few years with Richika Muni. And in the few years that she spent with Richika Muni, she learned that life is meant for serving others. She learned this one very important lesson from Richika Muni, that life is meant for serving others. Richika Muni spent his entire life serving others. Now he perfected his life and went back to Brahmaloka. Kaushiki, at this point in time, she thinks, what should I do with my life? Now that my husband is gone. So she decides that she wants to spend the rest of her life serving others. And to do this, she performed a great tapasya and eventually got the body of a river named Kaushiki. And in the form of the river Kaushiki, she is serving society forever. And Vishwamitra Muni, Ram and Lakshman are on that river in a boat. And Vishwamitra Muni is telling about his sister who is flowing in the form of a river over here, And Ram and Lakshman were thinking, What amazing brother and sister. Yeah. One sister is serving like that in the form of a river, and here's a brother serving in the society in the form of a sage, isn't it? What a deadly combination, isn't it? In one boat, Ram is looking at Vishwamitra Muni also, and his sister over here also. And Ram is just amazed by the greatness of both these personalities who dedicated their entire life in trying to serve society. Here we find that a river quenches thirst of people, and a sage quenches the thirst for knowledge. And Ram appreciated both of them. You need rivers that quench your material thirst, but you also need sages who can quench your thirst for knowledge. And we find that here the whole mood of these sages is so much about trying to serve society. There is a so if you look at Vayu's action and Kausiki's action, Vayu, he did not get reciprocation from those girls, right? And because he did not get reciprocation from those girls, he broke all their backs. He destroyed their lives. And here, Kaushiki, her husband technically left her and went to Brahmaloka. In one sense, she also, did not get full reciprocation from her husband, isn't it? But instead of feeling dejected and angry because her husband didn't reciprocate with her enough, she decided to use the rest of her life to serve society. When somebody rejects you, you can react in two ways. You can react with anger, or you can react with compassion. If somebody acts bad towards you, you can act in two ways. You can either act bad back, or you can act with more compassion. Show the world what is a better way to act, what is a better way to live, what is a better way to serve. And here we find that the Ramayana is teaching us through the story of Kaushiki, this river, and through the example of Vishwamitra Muni, the sage. Ram is so impressed with both of them, with the way they dealt with life and with the way people deal with them. All of us, we are all going to be either Kaushikis, we give our life to somebody, or we, dedicate our lives to somebody, and they don't reciprocate enough. Or we are all going to be like Vayu, we want something or we want someone, and that person, is not interested. We all have to decide, how do you want to deal with it? Do we want to deal with Vayu? I mean, both their names are in the Ramayana. But Vayu's action didn't impress Ram. But Kaushiki's action really impressed Ram. So the Ramayana inspires us to look at our lives in this way. Lord Ram, after hearing the story of Kaushiki, he was so impressed, touching the river with his hands, and he was, appreciating the sacrifice of Kaushiki. And they finally reached a very, very beautiful section of the forest, which is the destination that Vishwamitra Muni was bringing Ram and Lakshman towards. It is called as Siddhashram. Siddhashram is a very unique place. In my little research on Siddhashram, what I found out is that Siddhashram doesn't exist in the three dimensions that we exist in. The Siddhashram exists beyond the fourth dimension. That means, if right now Siddhashram is in front of you, you can't see it. You will see a regular place. But those who have the ability to see at that in a higher dimension, they will see Siddhashram there. So technically, nobody can go to Siddhashram. It's a very special place that only greatly evolved personalities can enter. There are many such places in this world which are inaccessible to a common man. If you go actually to Gangotri, beyond Gangotri is a place known as Gomukh. Gomukh is about 21 kilometers away from Gangotri. Very difficult trek to reach Gomukh. But if you somehow reach Gomukh, after Gomukh is a place known as Tapovan, which is even more difficult to reach. And somehow, if you reach Tapovan also, from Tapovan, there is a direct entrance into heaven. From Tapovan, you can straight enter into heavenly planets. That's one of the portals to reach heavens, basically. Now, obviously, even if you see the portal to heaven in front of you, you can't see it. Just to enter Nepal border, we need a visa. What does view of entering into the heavens, isn't it? I don't think you'll just walk in like that, Arey, mil gaya, Swarg Dwar. If you go beyond that, you will only see ice. You will not see anything because it's not accessible to you. So, like that, there are many dimensions that exist in this world. So, they reach this place known as Siddhashram. And Siddhashram is such an amazing place. Ram was very impressed with Siddhashram. The moment they entered Siddhashram, Vishwamitra Muni tells Lord Ram, this place is as much yours as it is mine. And Lord Ram immediately asks him, what do you mean? And another story starts. What that story is, we will see tomorrow morning. Hare Krishna.